We're in an age where we are either a millennial or we know one. Yet, I stand here today in front of you among my peers of 5 out of 18 growing leaders who felt as millennials the most seemingly connected, the most informed, and the most educated generation have no true understanding, no true familiarity, and no true perceived value of where our food comes from. As part of the Growing Leaders program, we had the chance to meet Senator Ann Ruston, and it was great to see the key areas of education in horticulture, food wastage, and the gap in perception are validated by the key policymakers in Canberra. The present scenario of the industry can be perfectly explained by this picture, which shows an old farmer nurturing a very young cotton bud. We believe the farmers of today need to nurture millennials to take up the reins for the future of the industry. But why? Horticulture industry is the third largest industry behind meat and grains. Yet, 60% of our present workforce are employed in the amenity sector of landscaping and gardening. And most of the rest come through vocational training. With an average age of a farmer being 65 and only 35% of the workforce in the industry being female, we have a lot of catching up to do. Since the Dawkins reforms in 1989 for higher education, resulting in rationalizing of programs delivered by universities and less unis offering horticulture degrees by the year, there has been a decline of at least 30% in the students taking up horticulture as a career path, and a change in this approach is needed. With the onset of new opportunities, a farmer can't just rely on people with farming skills. Need for the people to run the farm like an agribusiness and to improve opportunities has increased manifold. Human, technical, economic, financial operations form an agro-ecosystem that rely on cross-functional interactions. This diversification is the pathway for a future and the farm to become sustainable. A diversified business brings in the need to be compliant with quality assurance, OH&S, ethical standards, biosecurity, and hence people with skills that a vocational trained workforce cannot fulfill. This brings us to the next area of food wastage. Imagine food, still edible like this, being dumped weekly without being useful for anyone to eat. Take a moment to think of all the energy, water, and resources spent to waste this. The causes for food and produce being wasted in the production and immediately after production are the usual suspects of pests and diseases, damages caused during harvesting, during production, and weather. And the main causes after post-production, which are not in the hands of the farmers, are transportation damage, cosmetic rejections, or produce not meeting specifications, which have been driven by the retailers to a level where the end consumers expect perfection at all times. This has been highlighted by Junie and Luca through atypical fruit and veg at Growing Leaders last year. When did we forget? Most of the produce we grow is grown out in the open, left to the whims of the Mother Nature. Let me repeat that to you again. When did we forget that the produce we grow is grown out in the open, left to the whims of Mother Nature? As I was alluding to previously, the expenses of food wastage are increasing. At least 8 to 10% of costing is allocated for wastage. Imagine the amount of landfill and the pollution this causes. Methane gas from landfills is the third largest cause for carbon emissions across the planet, greater than the entire American industrial emission. With the advent and imminent threat of global warming, and some countries already going back to pull out their seed reserves from the Svalbard seed bank in Norway, water usage, food security, and everything related becomes a worrying prospect. But why aren't any initiatives working? The cost of logistics and transporting waste are higher than ever and non-existent in most areas. With a heavy reliance on cosmetic appearances, we need to step up and take initiative to raise awareness of our end consumers. Lack of solutions has led to some companies like CalFresh to start processing rejected produce like carrots into shredded carrots, stick carrots, and juicing to introduce a new product into the market, which isn't an option provided to many farmers as an incentive. Lastly, we need to measure the waste that is generated and analyze it at the pre-harvest level and look at ways to improving this. I now pass on to Taylor, or Rachel, sorry.